evening and welcome to the Indiana University Cinema's virtual screening room. I'm Brittany Friesner, the cinema's interim director. To begin tonight's program, we wish to acknowledge and honor the Indigenous communities native to this region and recognize that Indiana University Bloomington is built upon Indigenous homelands and resources. We recognize the Miami, the Delaware, the Potawatomi, and the Shawnee people as past, present, and future caretakers of this land. We're also grateful for IU's First Nations Educational and Cultural Center for their work toward educating all in the IU community about the truth of this land. And thank you all for joining us tonight for tonight's virtual event celebrating 10 years of transformative cinematic experiences. It's hard to believe 10 years has passed since we opened our doors for our very first public screening on January 13th, 2011. As I mentioned on our blog earlier this week, if you had asked me 1 year ago how we might be commemorating this anniversary, my vision would have been very different from how we are gathered together this evening. Yet here we are, together. Film and the sharing of our stories will always have the ability to bring people together, even when we may be physically apart. And I'm honored to have been a part of this film community for the better part of the first decade of IU Cinema's story. The format of tonight's program will be a bit of an IU Cinema variety show, really, with readings from our upcoming book, staff reflections on favorite cinema memories, and some special gifts for all of you. And to kick off the festivities, we've commissioned a brand new video looking back on the last 10 remarkable years, which we're thrilled to share with you at this time.
Well, I like that David Lynch said that films are the closest thing that we make to dreams.
The impact of film is so overwhelming.
It can become some sort of incarnated philosophy.
See parts of the world that we would never see otherwise, come into contact with ideas and points of view that we would never otherwise experience.
And cinema does it like no other way, regardless of it being from Japan or Russia or India or wherever.
It enables us to transport the audience into lands and realms where they've never been.
You can go into everybody's world. You can feel their misery, their excitement, their sexual lunacy, their murderous rage, everything without having to leave one place that you chose to go to.
I love the idea of going in a dark room and entering a new world.
How you kind of really fall into a film, that's incredibly powerful.
When you're in here, you are somewhere else.
And it's a language that anyone can read.
The world is waiting for you.
I think every university out there should be lucky to be blessed with a place like this. But this is the gold standard, right?
It's the best place in the entire Midwest, I guess, or maybe one of the best in the country.
A state-of-the-art projection. You have visionary leadership at the top.
The programming really rivals those of the best cinematheques in the world.
So many diverse and different films, of genre and taste and background and nationalities.
Bringing filmmakers into the university setting and having them spend time with the community and with students, I think that's a real gift.
Archives, films that you never heard of, films that haven't even been made, scripts that you never heard of, screenwriting. You can't get that out there.
For a film junkie, this is nirvana.
The arts are so critically important to the development of a well-rounded human being.
Supporting ideas, introducing new ideas, hopefully healing and enlightening you as a viewer.
Cinema is perhaps the most effective way of creating something that is in such short supply these days, and that's empathy.
The more eyes you watch the world through, the bigger your own world gets.
And that's key, because that's the only way we will work as one world.
the more accessible an art is, the richer the rewards.
Opportunity that's sitting right in the chairs, to actually transform the way we think about ourselves and about other people and how we take that into our lives when we leave the space like this. Really vital.
This kind of experience, this kind of knowledge, this kind of appreciation of cinema is contagious.
The enthusiasm and just having the resource to absorb these things is incredibly invaluable.
The mood of the campus is defined by this place here. So thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I've watched that a dozen times over the last week or so, and it still makes me emotional. So the next word in my script was wow. We did that together. It's amazing to look back at. While our team may have done the work behind the scenes to make possible the events and filmmaker visits featured in that video, and over the past 10 years, you've made them come alive. Your curiosity, engagement, and enthusiasm has served as inspiration for every single thing we do. So thank you once again for helping us build a place for film like no other. Before we move on, I want to be sure and give a special shout out to Joe and Kirsten of Toth Media LLC, who worked so hard on that gorgeous video and on so many of the filmmaker videos you've seen on our YouTube channel over the years. We'll eventually get this up on our YouTube again, so you can watch it a dozen times and cry just like me. All right, in concert with that extraordinary look back at our first decade, in 2019, our founding director, Jon Vickers, and I began work on our book, Indiana University Cinema, The New Model, which will be published by IU Press later this year. We'll be sharing a link in the chat here for more information on the book and a sneak preview of the cover, which hopefully you're seeing right now. The New Model is a look back at our first decade, paying homage to those who laid the groundwork, which led to our founding, reflecting on and recollecting the past 10 years of programming, partnerships, and filmmaker guests, including interviews with 17 filmmakers who visited, celebrating and spotlighting our campus collaborators, and looking ahead to what our next decade might bring. Tonight, Jon and I will each be reading short excerpts from the book, and I'll start now with the first few introductory paragraphs from Chapter 1, Setting the Stage. It is a warm October night, and hundreds of people flow into the Teatro Verde from the streets of Pordenone, Italy, a small city dating back to the Middle Ages, situated about 80 kilometers north of Venice. People make their way to their seats and get comfortable for the European premiere of the 1916 Western, The Return of Draw Egan. The film stars William S. Hart, who also directed the film and is one of Hollywood's top leading men. Coincidentally, the film was made 1 year after students from a university in the Midwest began presenting this new art form, film, in their student union, but we'll get to that later. The audience settles into their seats, the orchestra adjusts and applies fine-tuning to their instruments to accompany the silent film. The auditorium lights begin to dim, and the magic of light flickers and bursts onto the screen with Tri-Stone Pictures Incorporated presents William S. Hart and The Return of Draw Egan. The rising rumble of percussion leads to strings and woodwinds, and the rhythm of an opening theme materializes, with the sensation of it jumping off the screen. After about an hour, the picture ends with a roar of applause, which leads to a standing ovation. In 1916, this was a common reaction to films presented with a live orchestra in moderate-sized cities around the world. The silent movies were never silent, and these early days of cinema elicited strong audience reactions. But this is not 1916. It's October 11th, 2019, and the film score played by the orchestra was commissioned by Indiana University Cinema and composed by Indiana University Jacobs School of Music alumnus Ari Barak Fisher. Fisher was present for this presentation as a guest of the renowned La Giornata del Cinema di Muto, which selected the film along with Fisher's music to be showcased in its 2019 festival. The world premiere of this new original score was presented in IU Cinema 3 years earlier, 100 years following the release of the film. The opening of a state-of-the-art movie theater, which we will refer to as cinema throughout this book, does not just happen overnight on a large state university campus. These types of facilities are generally built into master plans and discussed for decades before they come to fruition. In the case of IU Cinema, it was a combination of building on IU traditions and the will of a dynamic new leader who launched a bold, new, ambitious venture to support and celebrate film, the seventh art. This chapter pays tribute to the leadership and contributions of countless individuals who have helped make possible the opening and extraordinary growth of IU Cinema in its first decade. In the beginning, the first motion picture show on the IU Bloomington campus was screened December 2nd, 1914, on 35mm in the auditorium of the student building, initiating a union movies program. In order to present films in the student building, a hole was cut in the wall of the building's auditorium, and the newly created projector booth was, quote, lined inside and out with asbestos so as to make it absolutely fireproof, end quote, as the Indiana Daily Student reported. The simplex 35mm projector was installed the day prior, and on that night, 4 short films, The Mill of Life, The Telltale Knife, Wally Van, and Thanks for the Lobster, screened for a standing room only audience of first nighters. There was music to accompany the films throughout the evening. The IDS wrote, quote, motion picture producers have shown an exceptional interest in the Indiana Union movies, end quote. By the spring of 1915, movies were screened every week on Wednesdays and Fridays, making this program at Indiana University the first in the U.S. on a college campus. Union Board Films remains the oldest student-operated film program in the United States. This is the first inspiration for IU Cinema. Film screenings and movies have been a part of the student experience here at the university for more than half its life. Based on this alone, it would not seem too far of a stretch to build a facility dedicated to the art form nearly 100 years later. So that's your first peek at our book, and we'll have more later as read by Jon in the event. Right now, please join me in welcoming our staff on screen, who I'll be bringing on one at a time. First up is Kyle Calvert, our design and marketing manager, who will be designing our book, and who, of course, designs all of our gorgeous promotional materials.
Hello.
Next is David Carter, our podcast producer and co-host, as well as blog contributor. Then Ava Clouden, one of our house managers. Next up is Mary Figueroa, one of our graduate student assistant projectionists. Following Mary is Elena Grassia, our technical director. After Elena is David Kortes, our events and operations assistant. Next up is Seth Mutchler, our technical coordinator, who is also running double duty and producing tonight's event. Following Seth is Michaela Owens, our publications editor. Then we have Elizabeth Roell, our other podcast co-host and our lead house manager. Followed by Jessica Davis Tagg, our events and operations director. And finally, but most certainly not least, Jon Vickers, our founding director, now emeritus. Welcome, everyone. Well, as we all are about to share our favorite memories, we also encourage you at home to share any of your favorite IU Cinema memories by submitting them in the Q&A box at any time, which you can reach by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. To get us started, with permission, I'd like to share comments from one of our student house managers, Will Eltsroth, who is also working behind the scenes tonight. Will shared, quote, IU Cinema and its programming catalog has been absolutely vital in my development as a student at IU, but picking one memory is too hard. That said, I absolutely owe much of my college development to the cinema, even more than the classroom, I would argue, end quote. Thank you, Will, for sharing your wonderful reflection and thoughts about your time at IU Cinema. I think, all right, we'll go to Kyle to get us started with your favorite memory or memories.
Hello. Boy, it's so hard to really think of one or two that really stood out. besides all of the wonderful work I have to show for the 5.5 years that I've worked at the cinema. But I think one of the two that I have is the first Jon Vickers scoring award. Was one of the first events that I went to, and I think it was the first one that really highlighted all that we do at the cinema, and really like woke me up to being like, holy cow, like this place is something, it is special, and I knew it was special, and that was part of the reason I wanted to come and work for the cinema and work for Jon and work for Brittany. But that one really just blew my mind. Like, wow, the sound, like I couldn't even tell that there was live orchestra. That's how good I thought it sounded. And I'd never experienced anything like that before. And it was just amazing. And not that it was just live music, but that it was student music and played by students, and just everything that the cinema does to support the campus and the community and the students. The second one really is just personally, I was the screening of The Eagle Huntress. I took my daughter, who's now 4, it was the first movie that she got to see in person, and I got to take her, and she probably she'll never even remember it, but I have the poster. I kept it from once the screening ended, and it was just a nice memory to be able to have, to take her to the place where I work, and that's given me a lot professionally, and be able to have that, and know that if she loves film, hopefully this job is maybe some part of that. The next person up is David Carter.
Thank you, Kyle. That was lovely. I could give a dissertation on IU Cinema Memories at this point. It could be any of the people I've been lucky enough to have dinner with on behalf of Jon and Brittany. It could be any of the small inconsequential memories, like serving Werner Herzog French fries at Farm, or getting completely wasted with Ana Lilia Maripor at the Bishop. Could be anyone. It could be any one of the individual screenings that I went to, the hundreds of screenings I went to at the IU Cinema. It could be anything, but I will choose the one that is in the one I submitted for the book, because it's the one that means the most to me. So it's February 2nd. February 2nd is important for 2 reasons. 1, February 2nd, 2014. 1, the Super Bowl is happening. And then 2, Philip Seymour Hoffman has just passed away. And for those who, I think everybody at this point knows who Philip Seymour Hoffman is, but the reason why that death is so totemic, he's a once in a lifetime actor. There will never be another actor like him. I equate him to a lot like a Robin Williams or a James Gandolfini. These are just people who are irreplaceable, and there will never be another person like them. Me and my friends are devastated. And then on February the 11th, I'm pretty sure, or 12th, there is a post by the IDS that the IU Cinema will be hosting a 24-hour memorial to him. And I don't know at that point that I'm gonna go, because I don't plan anything, very bad at planning. And so I decide at the last minute on the day of the event that I'm going to go to all 24 hours. And you would like to driving a bus. And so I walk to the cinema because I don't have a car, and I get there, and Jon mentions that there will be a hat for those who sits through all 24 hours of the marathon, which is just enough of a carrot for me to throw caution to the wind. I'm also very broke at this point, and I also want to make it clear, I didn't have money to order food for this, so I'm hungry, I don't have money for food, and I am emotionally distraught at this actor passing away. An actor so good, I want to make it very clear that he's in a movie called Along Came Polly, which is a terrible movie, and he elevates it to like a Gentleman 6 just by being in like 4 scenes of the movie. And it starts, and my friends, like, I see my friends trickle in for screenings. I see Busman's Holiday trickle in for The Master. I see so many different IU Cinema regulars come in and out over the course of like the next 24 hours. I have, what I don't know if it's a fever dream of not, as like Synecdoche, New York starts at like 6:15 in the morning. I don't know if I fell asleep during a late quartet, but like during that screening, I had to see so many people just like mourn, and it was Awake. It was like going to Awake. It was like the community came out for this person who, like, I can't speak for everyone in Bloomington who came to it, like, did not know this man, like probably did not meet him in any capacity. And at the end of that 24 hours, I remember going out to the lobby and seeing Jon there. And I was like, I think I'm gonna head home. I like kind of left a little bit early during the last film. And he said, like, you're one of only other two people who actually stayed for the majority or all of this. So here's a hat. And we're walking home, like, like I'd been crying during so many of the movies. And I remember putting on the hat and then passing out on my couch for what was essentially an entire day. So that is my IU cinema memory. So Ava, please share your IU cinema memory.
David, that was majestic. I would listen to you talk about those scenes in Along Came Polly like every day for the rest of my life. My favorite memory does not exist. The limit does not exist. The cinema has been my North Star since I moved to Indiana in 2013. But the one I wanted to talk about tonight is from spring 2018. And that was my first year out of college. So I was thinking a lot about time all the time. I was so empowered by having my own time to do whatever I wanted. So I was at the cinema more than I had ever been, like, any year before. And it was great, but there was this one movie in particular that I remember watching just like in my personal time, and I was like, this is a great movie, this is fun, the story was compelling, it was technically good, I gave it a good rating on the internet, like the whole shebang, but I didn't feel anything about it. I didn't feel any kind of personal way about it, and that really bummed me out. I didn't know what to do with that. I had just spent 2 hours of my life, my time, that's my 2 hours. And I had just spent it watching this movie that didn't make me feel much of anything at all. And then like 3 weeks later, Cheryl Dunier came and the cinema screened Watermelon Woman. And I just remember practically like vibrating in my seat during her Q&A, or maybe it was her Jorgensen. And she just, the way that she spoke about film so lovingly, the way that she spoke about people in her approach to film so lovingly just really touched me. And I remember she said, once you see yourself in anything, you hold on to that. And I held on to that, and I held on to so many things that the cinema's given to me. But that one really stuck out when I saw that in the video that made Brittany tear up. I teared up too. I was like, oh yeah, Cheryl really pulled me out of a tough place. And I owe the cinema a lot for that. And that's my memory. Off to our girl, Mary Figueroa.
Yeah, all these memories are really, really fun to hear and really touching. The video was really touching as well. I agree with everyone else here that it's hard to find a favorite memory, that it feels like IU Cinema has been a huge part of my IU career. I did my undergrad at IU and I'm about to finish graduate school. So I've been here a long time. I actually had my IU orientation at the cinema, which I think is pretty symbolic in the long run. I just remember gradually getting older throughout undergrad and going to more and more films by myself and getting really comfortable and actually really loving going to movies by myself. And there was one movie that I went to probably my first year of graduate school. I had already started working at the cinema. I went to see Afterlife, and I remember I walked through a snowstorm for like 30 minutes just to get to this movie because I was so excited to see it. And it was one of those nights where you walk in and sit down and it's just magical, and kind of everything about the night was magical walking there. And I think what made it even more special is as I was leaving, you know, there were all these people I knew that were way myself. IU Cinema's always provided this really great community for me that I'm really grateful for. And we were all talking about posters a little bit before this all started, so I wanted to share my Afterlife poster, which I got after seeing the movie because it was just so touching. But I have to mention, of course, some of my favorite memories are getting to project at the cinema and getting to learn how to project with Elena and Seth. And I'm just really, really grateful to have learned that wonderful skill and have, had this opportunity to share films with everyone that came to the cinema and saw them. So also Mad Max was really fun. That's another great one. So yeah, thank you guys. And next is Brittany.
And it's a good thing I'm not going last because y'all are making me cry more and more. So I'm glad to be in the first third here. And honestly, after hearing some of you speak, I've changed my favoritist memory, but I'm gonna give 3 highlights first. And that was John Waters hosting John Waters first, period. Amazing. But also he asked me if he could take my photo, because his assistant was so impressed with our planning skills and how much we think of every little detail. So that was fun, first of all, but it also made me realize, sometimes we can be a bit extra at the cinema, but it's because we want everything to be world-class and as amazing as possible. So that was a real validation for the work we put in, that it was noticed. And after his visit, his assistant she sent a thank you letter, which I still have somewhere to this day, and said, I wish we could clone you and your staff for every place that he goes. Also, just a small one, well, it's not that small, but it sticks out in my brain just because of her generosity of spirit. When I was hosting Penelope Spheris, we went to Juanita's one night for dinner as just a casual thing to catch up quickly between her appearances. And she bought my dinner when I went to the bathroom. So yeah, Penelope and I bonded pretty well and have remained friends. So that was special. Also, the DeLorean on Back to the Future Day. Yeah, that was amazing. Also fun, and I love that we played all 3 of the movies frontwards and backwards. That was good. But my favoritist memory, frankly, is having the opportunity to be able to create all of these memories for everyone. I thought I'd have to leave Indiana to get a job like this. Good Lord. And I almost didn't even apply, if you can believe that. I had gone through a really rough year the year before I got the job at the IU Cinema, and I'd finally found some stability. I had a great job at the Jacobs School of Music, and I found out about the job, and I was like, you know what? Thanks, John, for giving me the heads up, but I think I'm good right now. I can't believe I said that. He's like, all right, well, when it posts, just be sure you look at it. And of course the job posted, and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Before that, I'd applied for every job that had come open at the IU Cinema, the administrative support specialist, the business manager position. And I finally got one. So I'm glad I hung in there. And a quote that Karin Kusama said this fall in a student masterclass reminds me of something I need to remember in my position, because a lot of times we create these experiences and not all of them are memorable, or not all of them are as well attended as we would like. But she was talking about a project of hers, and she said, you just got to experience and create as much joy as you can and let the rest go. So up next is Elena.
Hello. So on Tuesday, March 20th in 2018, IU Cinema hosted a free event titled Funkology, a conversation with Bootsy Collins and Dr. Scott Brown. And as Brittany mentioned, a lot of what happens before these events actually happen is planning, and planning across departments. And in this case, the person who was leading the planning was Dr. Tyron Cooper, who is an associate professor in African American and African diaspora studies, and also the director of the Archives of African American Music and Culture. And he had a lot of ideas about what this was going to be like. And in our typical IU production team procedure, we tried to get all of the bullets of what was going to happen when, in what turned out to be a very complex show with no actual film. It was guests, conversation, and PowerPoint, but we had a DJ on stage, and we also had anticipated that it was going to be such a full house that we also collaborated with Steve Agazi of Creative Technologies, an IU, and he helped us in one of our very first Zoom overflows so that there was even an auxiliary audience in Woodburn Hall that could watch live because we couldn't fit everybody in the theater. And Jessica, you may remember, I think we had a snowstorm that day, and Dr. Cooper, Dr. Scott, who was the UCLA professor that came to present first an introduction to funkology as a PowerPoint presentation. He was delayed arriving at the cinema. We knew he was coming with his own laptop. We had to wait for him to get there. He changed the way we were going to present at the last minute. And then another collaborative supportive partner, IU Class Technology, John Gordon, actually was at the event to support Dr. Scott Brown on stage. So all of this was happening, and I clearly remember Jon Vickers poking his head into the theater saying, "We've got to open," while I was trying to get Tyron to stop coming up with new ideas, which was wonderful, but we were trying to start. And I'm sure Jessica and the house staff were just wrangling people who were waiting online and trying to route them either into the theater or into the overflow room. And one of the first things that happened was IU Soul Review, the music band that plays here and is part of the African American and Diaspora Studies. They actually performed first, and by this time the house was packed and it was so lively. And when John came up to introduce, he said that this is the liveliest I've seen this room in 7 years, because they were so wonderful as a group, but the audience was so excited. And what I learned later was that Bootsy Collins, the special guest, had actually met with students and worked with students prior to the lecture. So he'd already primed them for the excitement of what was about to happen. So we started with the Soul Review. Then Dr. Scott Brown came on and gave a PowerPoint presentation. Now, I like funk music. I've danced to it. I've sung to it in the car. I had a best friend in Santa Fe who was in a band called Functuation, and we used to hear him playing across the Arroyo on his saxophone and go see him play. So I knew funk, but Dr. Scott Brown made it an academic presentation of what it meant culturally and to the people who were involved in the music, making it a much deeper understanding for me. And then I believe Jessica actually was the person who personally walked Bootsy Collins from waiting in a building in the Neil Marshall.
Yes, he was in the Neil Marshall. He needed an escort, and so I ran in high heels over there because we thought he was already here when he said that he needed an escort, which was fine. So Tyrone and I ran over and escorted him, and he gave me a big hug, and I never showered after that.
And of course, we had a whole special way that he had to enter with music playing, and he walked his way across the front of the floor and went up on stage and began a conversation with Dr. Scott Brown. And one of my favorite parts of this memory is learning about the one. So he talked about how the fundamentals of funk is that the first beat is emphasized. Now, of course, now that I've heard that, I of course hear it all the time in funk music. but he told the story of how James Brown, who hired him when he was a young man, said to him, "You got to give me the one. You're not giving me the one." And that was the fundamental learning for him to learn how to play funk music. But probably my favorite memory is that the whole event was such a success. And afterwards, there's a reception at the Neil Marshall. I got everything closed down, got things battened down, went over. When I got to the reception, Bootsy Collins' son, was it Bowie, was DJing. I mean, this was a major event for us to be a part of. And I was so excited, so impressed. And Tyron Cooper saw me from across the reception room, stopped what he was doing, and we crossed the hall and hugged each other to congratulate each other in like pulling it off. It was so exciting to be a part of. So glad to share that memory. And now I'll turn it over to David Kortes.
Thank you. And, you know, I have been dreading this moment tonight because this is hard for me because I'm the freshest face here, I believe. And I've been doing my entire job online. Zoom is almost everything that I know. I have done the first Thursdays on campus, and the Cinema Paradiso screening at the stadium was mind-blowing. And I'm hearing all these memories, and I'm getting a little jealous that I didn't get here sooner, especially Back to the Future. I don't know if you can see my Back to the Future poster back there, but I hate that I missed that now. And so, I mean, I tried thinking of memories to come up with, but, you know, I just kind of want to say thank you to everyone on screen, because when I got to Indiana with all that is going on with this pandemic and craziness, I had no idea what to expect. And, you know, having the idea of meeting people solely through Zoom was a little strange for me, because I like to talk a lot and I like to be personal with people. And I didn't think that Zoom would be able to do that for me. But being at IU Cinema has really opened my eyes that all these people really care about what they're doing, and they care about everyone on their team, no matter even if they haven't met them before and only through a computer screen. So I really just want to say thank you to everyone for making me feel like I'm a part of this and that I am welcomed here. And, you know, I hope to have memories like all of you have in the future. So thank you so much. And moving on to Seth.
Thanks, David. I must admit, I thought I was going to be clever. I was going to be the only one who was going to give the there's no favorite memory because all the memories are favorite line. And I see that I'm not the only one who thought that, but I think it's true for all of us that there's so many memories. And it is true that when I was trying to think of what my favorite memory was, or my favorite memory is, I was struck by how different they all were. And I was picking between extremely disparate experiences, but they were all in top contention for my favorite. So that was something that was just notable for me that I really enjoyed. I wanted to give an honorable mention for my favorite memory. So for those of you who may not know, I've had many hats at the cinema, including an official IU Cinema hat. But I am currently the technical coordinator. And I remember a moment trying to figure out, I can't remember what the exact problem was, but trying to figure out some technical problem. And we have our sort of diagram of all of the components and as they relate to each other on these huge sheets of engineering paper. And I remember a moment with all of these sheets splayed out all over the floor of Elena and my shared office. And she came in and I said, "I got it." And I remember figuring out that sort of problem by tracing it on the diagram. But my actual favorite IU Cinema memory is watching and introducing Kevin Smith's film Clerks. Clerks for me is a really important film. It's one of my favorite movies just to watch. But it also is a movie that I share a lot of affinity with my older brother. And I got to introduce that movie and sort of share my story with my brother in the audience. And I thought I had told him about all of this and about how fundamental he was and instrumental he was in getting me involved in film and fostering my love for film. But it was clear to me when I came off the stage, the look on his face, that he had not heard me say that before. So it was really special for me to get to share that with him. And then we got to sit and watch the movie all together. So that was a really wonderful moment for me. So that is my favorite IU cinema memory. And next I will pass it to Michaela.
You guys are all trying to make me cry. This is awful. Yeah, so yeah, it's just, God, the cinema is, now I'm gonna start to cry. Super special. It's been a huge part of my life for 6-7 years. I don't even know. And so yeah, so it's hard to pick a favorite, which says a lot about the place when you can't just pick one. I mean, just what immediately came to mind was just some screenings in the past couple years that just movies I had seen 100 times, just sitting in the cinema and seeing them on the big screen. It was just, I felt like I was in another world. So A Star is Born with Judy Garland, that was incredible. Brigadoon with Gene Kelly, one of my favorite movies. And I'm always a little hesitant about showing that movie to other people because it's a little weird and it's not considered one of Vincent Minnelli's best, even though I think it is. So, you know, I was hesitant to kind of see that with a bunch of other people. But God, as soon as it started and that music started, it was just, I felt like I was in the movie. It was incredible. And then, you know, getting to interview Vincent Price's daughter, Victoria, for the blog. When I got that email from Jon asking me if I wanted to do that, I was, what? Like, you don't have to ask me, just like, I'll do it. Yes, absolutely. And then going out to dinner with her, and, you know, I can remember me and Elizabeth sitting next to each other and being like, this is weird. Like, what do we do? But she was so sweet, and she, it was really nice because she wrote a book about her father. And so in preparing for the blog post, I got to read this book and just watch a whole bunch of Vincent Price movies that I hadn't seen yet. And that was just amazing because I'd already loved him, but this just like absolutely cemented that love. And so she was doing a book signing at one point, and I got to just stand there by her and kind of usher patrons to her and stuff, and just hearing the love people still had for Vincent Price. And she was such a special person, and she really connected with everybody who talked to her. And then at one point, Jessica let me go and get my copy of the book so Victoria could sign it for me. So that was just really special. But my favoriteest memory, which will surprise absolutely no one, was, God, I can't believe last year. I can't believe it's been almost a year. Was last March when I got to be part of Staff Selects and program one of my favorite Esther Williams movies, because I'm obsessed with Esther, and she was the subject of my master's thesis. And you know, my last semester as a grad student coincided with the screening, kind of, so it was like a really fitting way to kind of end a super stressful experience. And it's kind of bittersweet now because that was the last time I got to see a movie at the cinema in person so far. But it's also just a really joyful memory because I got to be there with my sister and my mom, who don't get to come to the cinema that often and just kind of sit there in a daze, just grinning like an idiot watching Esther Williams and Van Johnson. So that was super, super special. So before I start sobbing, I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth so we can watch her cry.
You know me well, Michaela. I'm gonna echo everyone here. There are way too many special moments at the cinema to count. I wasn't gonna do like an honorable mention, but since everyone else is, I met George Takei at the cinema, which was pretty freaking cool. There was a dinosaur running around during Jurassic Park. That was a lot of fun. And then just like everyone coming out of Imitation of Life with like tears streaming down their face, and everyone is like literally like their faces are all puffy, and I'm like trying to hide myself, but then I see everyone else is like that. Okay, it's cool, we can all just accept this. And like literally a million more. I love working screenings, and when people come out and are just like so affected by what they've seen, whether it's good or bad, that's the best. I love when people come up to me and oh my god, did you see that movie? And then I have to explain like, no, I didn't get to watch. I never get to watch. But please tell me about it, because I want to experience it how you're experiencing it. Which so many of those. And then I'm gonna do a little bit of a cop out and pick my staff selects, which was December 7th, 2019. I showed Under the Skin, the Jonathan Glazer film from 2013. I picked that film most like it's one of my favorite films, but it's a very atmospheric film. And I'd only ever seen it on my television. So I was like, I really want to see this on the big screen. It probably has like one of my favorite film scores ever by Mika Levy. Shout out to her. But it was extra special because I don't think I've ever had so many friends at the cinema watching the movie with me. Like I kind of really rallied to get everyone I knew to the screening, and it was like my partner's first time coming to the cinema, which like that's always like nerve-wracking. Like, okay, I work here and here's all these people, I hope they like it as much as I do. Which he liked it, but not as much as me, because that's hard to that's a hard level to reach there. But yeah, I think just like the emotion of having everyone there, and like people coming up to me and being like, that was awesome, or I didn't understand that movie at all because it's a weird movie. Which I like those comments too. And then to top it all off, I went to the Root Cellar after the screening, and some random girl just came up to me and was like, oh my gosh, you showed the Under the Skin movie at the cinema. And I was like, yes, that was me. And she's like, that changed my life. And I think that was a bit of a hyperbole due to maybe some inebriation. But it was a very nice compliment to get from a stranger. And so that's why that's one of my favorite moments. Over to you, Jessica.
Too many to talk about, blah, blah, blah. So the couple of very short highlights would be when we screened The Exorcist. And there was a point in the movie where the sound was so good, about 20% of the audience kept turning around to shush this conversation happening in the back of the cinema, but it was the movie. It was meant to be distracting, and everybody really fell into it. Being able to choose for my staff selects The Wrath of Khan. And I believe that's the first Star Trek movie we showed. And then being able to announce to the 240 people who showed up that my husband is watching the movie for the first time so that he knows what his chest needs to look like in another 30 years. Everything Will Be Fine, which is a Wim Wenders movies we showed in 3D, where the audience all came out just so affected by the movie and that they hated the main character. So everybody's walking out of the movie theater going, I just wanted him to die. I wish he died. But they really felt this movie, you know, it was very impactful. The Princess Bride at midnight, when the wedding scene happened at 1 in the morning, and everybody started cracking up before we get the famous marriage. But about 30% of the audience hadn't seen the movie and couldn't figure out why everyone was laughing. My famous one is we showed a movie called Bikes versus Cars in collaboration with the Kelley School of Business, and they had brought in for a Q&A amongst several folks a bike and pedestrian person from the Bloomington city, and I sat there and watched one person come up to her and say, what can we do to make Bloomington a more pedestrian friendly city? And then a second person, and then a third person, and before long there were about 15 people, and they ended up forming a group in order to help what happened. But my favorite memory, my sister and I are famous in my family because when she was 6 years old, she got a VHS of the, yeah, see, everyone knows, The Sound of Music. And we watched it all the time. We're famous in my family because we could repeat it like backwards and forwards. We knew the whole movie. My parents finally had to instill a limit that we were only allowed 2 viewings per day, which is a lot for a 3-hour movie. So we spent our other time choreographing the dances for all the Von Trapp children for 2. And my first year here, we did the very first Sound of Music quote along. So I called my sister who is living in Houston, Texas, and I said, Katie, this is the moment we have been preparing for our whole lives. This is our destiny. You have to come. And so she got on an airplane and she flew to IU Cinema, and we sat in the back of the movie. And we, oh my gosh, the people in front of me didn't know what to do. We just talked through the whole movie. We knew the whole thing. It all just came right back. So that for me was a special moment. And now over to Jon Vickers.
Thanks, Jessica, and thanks to all of you. This has been fun. It's been tearing up is something that I think is a common theme, and myself included, starting with the video and then carrying through some of these memories. This is a great testament to not only the universality of film, but also how subjective it is. And everybody has these different moments that, affected them and transformed them in different ways. And it's pretty impressive. Yes, as everyone said, I mean, literally thousands of experiences. To try to choose one or two, I can't, but I'll choose a few filmmaker memories that are really special to me. In 2014, we helped nominate, well, we did nominate Meryl Streep for an honorary doctorate. We led the nomination, and she came. And in introducing and presenting Meryl Streep for her doctorate, after I was done introducing her, she intentionally made it a point to walk across the stage and kiss me on the cheek in front of 3,000 people at the IU auditorium. And that was pretty special. I'm getting goosebumps to have arguably the most celebrated actress of film of all time, do that was pretty great. We had been chasing a filmmaker for about 8 years, Jim Jarmusch. And the visit was special, but my time on stage with him, as well as my time on stage with Mira Nair, were, I think, 2 of the most enjoyable conversations maybe that I've ever had. I know their work so well, and it just felt like I was talking to old friends on stage and having a conversation, and it was really, really special for me. So many others, and I just, all of the live music events were each special in their own ways, not only with the orchestras, but with the bands and the different groups that we had coming through. One of the things that, I've gotten from all of your memories, and I think about my memories as well, is we had a lot of firsts, in this first decade. And, there were so many new experiences, so many things that we hadn't done before, so many things that we committed to doing, not knowing that we could do, but having the confidence that we could. And so we accomplished so many unique things, and those are all very special. One thing that's, not in the cinema proper, but it's tied to our filmmakers. Many people probably don't know that I was able to drive some of our filmmakers to other venues or other universities, and including Claire Denis and Jim Jarmusch and Walter Salas and Tamer El Said and maybe others. And having 4 hours in the car with a person, you get to know somebody pretty well. And I felt like I really bonded with those folks. And they all ended with hugs, and some of them ended with tears. And yeah, so those were all really special as well. Yeah, so there are so many, and those are just a few. And there are many in the book that we're going to continue to talk about too. And I think it'll be a special publication for anybody that's linked to the cinema and has shared some of those memories with us. So back to Jessica, and then we'll continue. Thanks.
Well, I'm gonna cut in first and just say one of the first filmmaker hostings Jon asked me to do was to drive Lydia lunch to Louisville. So that was a hilariously awesome experience. But I just want to say, I said that if you'd asked me a year ago, what would tonight look like, and it would have been very different. It would have. Of course, we'd all be in person. But thank you all for creating that feeling of being together by sharing all of your memories. This has been so great, and I'm going to keep moving so that I don't start tearing up again. I'm going to turn it over to our events and operations director. We have some trivia coming up, but we also want to read out some of your memories that you're throwing out in the Q&A, which hopefully you're all seeing. We're sharing them and answering them live so you can feel like you're a part of this event too. So Jessica?
Yes, absolutely. So I'd encourage everyone, that's why we're putting them in the answered, but I'd like to go through some of them also for the staff. A lot of these are recognizable folks. Sarah Knott, one of our partners, her favorite memory is the touching audience response to Seahorse, the story of one trans man's journey through pregnancy. I remember that one very well. Ashley Crouch screening her film as part of Double Exposure with live orchestra. Also seeing Almost Famous for the first time at the Philip Seymour Hoffman Marathon. Chaz Mottinger, and I don't know how to pronounce Chaz's last name, which makes me feel bad because I love her so much. But she says that her best moment was meeting her husband at the Bill Cunningham New York screening in May 2011. We were there with a mutual friend who thought we'd both like the film. So the cinema truly brought us together. Eric Beckstrom remembers running into Jon and some random guy named John Sayles, the great independent filmmaker, and waiting during a pause of the Brother from Another Planet screening that night, during which Sayles himself recut the print up in the booth as the scene was in the wrong place. Always an adventure. Does Jon have something to say about that?
I do. That's a funny story, which you shared part of. Eric, John Sayles was wrong. And actually UCLA corrected that and saying that, no, this was a cut that he made that he must have forgotten about. So.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's the best memory so far. Jennifer Bass remembering John Waters, what a kick and a generous spirit. And he was, especially all his outfits were very fun. Sarah Knott, every winter movie when I'm hurried through the cold and arrived into the warm foyer, stamping feet and glad to be there. Ashley says her dream is forever to get a job like this at the cinema, as is with us all. Suzanne Schwibs, one of her favorites was a masterclass with Werner Herzog when he turned to one of Suzanne's film students, and said, "You understand cinema." Greg Sorvig, hi Greg. The cinema fosters a special sense of reverence and wonder for film, and it's an electric feeling shared between the staff, moviegoers, and guests. I especially treasure intimate opportunities to have experienced the work of and engage with Mira Nair, Nia DaCosta, Jonathan Banks, Boots Riley, Neil Brand, and dozens of other guests from around the world. I'm a different person because of the cinema and the friendships and experiences it has offered over the past 10 years. Thank you. Rachel Stolce wanted to remember the Orphans Film Symposium in 2013 and shared a few pictures with us, as well as the Days of Silent Cinema, La Giornate del Cinema Muto that we did in 2019, more pictures. I'm going to share this one from T. Michael Ford. We always love to see him at the cinema. A plethora of favorite memories, too many to count, starting with reaching out and meeting Jon Vickers soon after he started at the IU Cinema. Seeing a Pedro Almodovar film, hearing Mira Nair in person, seeing Bootsy Collins on stage, the memories flood is overwhelming. But one of the sweetest is taking my youngest daughter, Noni, and we all know and love Noni Ford, to see a film there when she was still in high school. I think it was Hitchcock's The Birds. And after the screening, she decided to study film and become a student usher at IU Cinema. I shall forever beam with pride. Bill Holiday. Bill. It's just so exciting to see all these names pop up. I worked as a writer-editor at the IU Foundation for many years, and I helped draft the first fundraising brochure for IU Cinema before the cinema even existed. The more I learned about the project, the more excited I became. I've loved film since I was in high school, so you better believe I was in the audience for the first screening. Turns out what I wrote was not BS. The reality was even better than I'd imagined. I've only grown more impressed in the years since. Oh, and I think I've been a donor ever since too. Hint, hint, y'all. So we have a lot more memories. We won't have time to go through all of them, but I will encourage everyone to take a moment and read all of them. We love you all. Keep those memories coming. We enjoy reading them, and then we'll start answering all of them. So they'll be in the answered section, and you can take a look. So for our next we thought it would be fun to do a little bit of trivia. This is not any stress whatsoever. We're not going to keep track of your answers. We aren't going to shame you for losing. We won't even know. And if you have any problem with your poll, the poll should pop up right on your screen. So here's the first one. This is what it'll look like. If you have any problems doing it, put a Q&A and will try to help you. Yeah, a lot of people already know. This is a good enough poll. There's some difficult questions. I have even allowed to get a chance to vote because I think I may stump some of them with some of these. So the first question is, what movie was shown at the first public screening at IU Cinema? Citizen Kane, Star Wars, Casablanca, Lawrence of Arabia, Cinema Paradiso. So I'll give everyone about 10 seconds to think through that. All right, last chance to get your answers in. Oh, got a couple more streaming in. All right, we're gonna end this and I get to show you the results. And you are correct. The very first public screening was Lawrence of Arabia on January 13th, 2011. All right, question number 2. IU Cinema hosts 4 panels of the 22-panel set of Indiana murals painted by Thomas Benton Hart for the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago. What other buildings on campus also host these murals? And you can choose more than one, so this one's a little bit more difficult. So the options are Franklin Hall, Indiana Memorial Union, Musical Arts Center, Woodburn Hall, the Lee Norville Theater and Drama Center, Eskenazi Museum of Art, Kinsey Institute, Lilly Library, Grunwald Gallery of Art, and IU Auditorium. So again, 15 seconds or so. All right, last call for votes. All right, and here we go. I'm going to share with everybody, and this is also correct, Woodburn Hall and IU Auditorium. So the Benton murals were painstakingly restored before we reopened in 2011. And what many of you don't know is we actually have Benton enthusiasts that tour the murals every year, every single year. Almost every semester, there are multiple people who want to see these Benton murals and then walk inside and say, so what is this building? And don't even know that it's a cinema. All right, question number 3. Approximately how many countries have created movies that have been screened at IU Cinema? 22, 45, 75, 90, or 110? All right. Let's do 10 more seconds. Last call for votes. All right. Well, we have quite a variety here. 110 is the closest to being right. We actually have 119 countries represented. To put that number in context, the UN currently recognizes 195 sovereign states, although the way we count our 119 countries represented do include some that are not in that 195 because they're not currently recognized or they're not currently in existence, like say the USSR or Yugoslavia when we show movies countries just historically. Question number 4. Which of these is not a regular series at IU Cinema? The Underground Film Series in partnership with the Media School, the Art in a Movie series in partnership with the Eskenazi Museum of Art, the Cine Kids International Children's Film Series, the AFI Top 100 series, the 5X series that celebrates the careers of past filmmaking legends, or the Themester series in partnership with IU Themester. So let's take another 10 seconds. Last call for votes. All right, here we go. And that is true. The AFI Top 100 series is not one we show. We just show AFI Top 100 movies so often it doesn't really deserve its own series. We typically have 30 to 40 series each semester, with typically 50 to 60% of those being partnered with another IU department or on-campus or community organization. So we do partner quite heavily throughout the year. Question number 5. In the fall of 2019, IU Cinema dedicated the entire month of September to films directed by women. Thank you, Brittany. How many events, including films and guest filmmaker programs, did the IU Cinema put on that month? 49, 37, 56, or 41? All right, a few more. And I'm going to get myself in trouble here because in my notes, I did not write down the actual correct answer and I don't know it. Elizabeth? It was 41, right?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was 49.
49 sounds right. I actually put this question up because while we definitely focus on movies directed by women in September of each year, we show movies created by women year round. And these are the numbers I wrote down instead of the number to this one about 2019. Numbers vary each year, but over the past few years, around 1/3 of our screenings are of movies directed by women, and about half are either directed by or written by women. Question number 6. What was IU Cinema's building used for before it became a cinema? Storage for IU Auditorium, who we are attached to, the University Theater, a dance studio, a classroom for movie history classes, or administrative offices. So let's take 10 more seconds. Seems like we're having a much higher participation. Folks know this one. Last chance to get in your votes. All right, excellent. It was indeed the University Theater. Many of you know because the carving says University Theater across the entrance of the cinema. It's considered an integral part of this historical building in case you've ever wondered why it says that and not IU Cinema. Question number 7. During the 2017-2018 school year, then student volunteer Will Altsroff broke the record for number of shifts completed in a year and paper for this accomplishment. How many shifts did Will complete that year? And this is particularly funny because Will is helping us, is working tonight, and I did not tell him I was going to include this question. Hi, Will. More seconds. And you don't have to know the answer. It's totally fine. I'm guessing this one might even stump John. Last call. All right. It was indeed 81 shifts. Will still holds the record for the most shifts completed in a year. And I should mention, that's not just shifts worked, that's also movies watched at the cinema. He's now working as a paid house manager and is helping me manage these things off screen tonight. So much love to Will.
I'm just going to butt in. Will wants to make sure that Ben also gets credit for doing 60 in one semester.
One semester. Yeah, Ben would be holding the record had not we hired him after that semester. All right. Question number 8. As part of IU Cinema screened the human condition on 35 millimeter film, how many reels of film was the entire movie? Which we're going to give you a hint, but it's only useful if you know how long the human condition was. One reel is approximately 20 minutes. Was it 13 reels, 22 reels, 29 reels, 35 reels, or is that a trick question because there's no such thing as 35 millimeter film? All right, 10 more seconds. And Barbara and Seth, do you guys want to handle discussing this one and revealing the proper answer? All right, let's get the and there we go. So let's end polling and share results. Seth and Elena, want to share some memories about this one?
As I remember, there were 3 projectionists to get this actually screened. And was I the first shift and then you were the second shift? But I'm sorry, I can't remember who the 3rd projectionist was.
I think, was it Peyton?
Yes, it was Peyton. And we didn't have enough house reels. So after I finished the first part, I had to actually put that part back on its shipping cans while Seth showed the second part so that I could put the 3rd part on house reels so we could show the entire film. It was fun and it was beautiful.
Yeah, watching that movie was a marathon, but preparing that movie was also a marathon. Fortunately, it came in pretty good shape.
And that is the correct answer. It was 29 reels of film. It was an adventure for all of us. All right, question number 9. When did President McRobbie announce that one of his strategic objectives was to turn the unused University Theater into the first IU facility dedicated to film? 1997, when he joined Indiana University as Vice President for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer. In 2006, when he became the interim provost. In 2007, during his inaugural address as president of IU. In 2010, in celebration of him becoming a U.S. citizen. Or 2015, when IU launched For All, the Indiana University Bicentennial Campaign. And yes, all of those dates are accurate, and those things did happen in those years. All right, let's do 10 more seconds. And last call. All right. And you are all correct. In 2007, President McRobbie, during his inaugural address, announced that this was a major strategic initiative. And then, of course, it took from 2007 to 2011 to plan, build, and equip one of the best university cinemas in the world. Question number 10. Approximately how many student films has been screened at IU Cinema over the past decade? 70, 125, 200, 275, or 550? And I think Brittany and I are probably the only people who actually know the answer to this question because we had to do the research for it, for this. So everyone should take a guess, and I want everybody on screen to take a guess as well. 10 more seconds. All right, last call for votes. It is 550. If you can believe it. So this includes our regular series. We have a student showcase series. We had a 3D series of shorts where the students created student-run festivals of student short films, and our double exposure series with student filmmakers, student composers, and student sound engineers. So all our student films are really created by a breadth of students across campus in many different disciplines. And our final question: which of these filmmakers has not visited IU Cinema? Mira Nair, Meryl Streep, John Waters, Kevin Kline, Werner Herzog, Ava DuVernay, Jim Jarmusch, Glenn Close, Abbas Kiarostami, or none. All of these filmmakers have visited IU Cinema. And let's do 10 more seconds. I see the responses streaming in. Last call. All right, I'm going to close it and share. And they have all visited IU Cinema. This was such a fun list to come up with. Zoom limited me to 10 responses because I had tons of so many impressive filmmakers that have come to visit IU Cinema. But all of these folks have been here, and it is quite extraordinary. Thank you all for sharing and participating in this trivia. Thanks to all of our staff for participating as well as sharing your memories. We're going to say goodnight to most of the staff, including me. And I would like to thank all of you for being here tonight. Next, we are happy to give the spotlight to Founding Director Emeritus Jon Vickers, who will be sharing another excerpt from our upcoming book, Indiana University Cinema, The New Model.
Thank you, Jessica. And let me say thank you to all of you, first off, for inviting me to be part of this event, but for everything that you've accomplished. I mean, all the great memories are a testament to what we've done collectively. Yeah, really impressive. So thanks for all of your good work. When Brittany first approached me about writing this book with the idea, I thought it was a novel idea, but I also thought it was bold to maybe consider a book after only 10 years of being in existence. And I'm so glad that she had the idea, and I'm glad we decided to do this and put the good work into it. I think we've written a pretty darn good book, and it's full of so much great artwork, great photography from IU Studios. There's so much to tell, and so anybody involved in IU Cinema, I think, is going to really enjoy this book. But I think it's also going to be an interest to the casual cinephile who's interested in filmmaker interviews. It's been fun to reflect on those memories as we put the book together, but also, continue to do so. So I think all of you, plus all of you in the audience, hopefully take an enormous amount of pride on what we've accomplished. I'm going to read a short passage from chapter 2. It's called Unveiling a New Model, which captures an evening 10 years ago to this night. So I'm going to read from paper if you don't mind. IU Cinema opened its doors to a public audience for the first time on January 13th, 2011, with a screening of David Lean's epic masterpiece, Lawrence of Arabia from 1962, part of a series called The Lean Years, which featured several of Lean's films. In addition to the series, IU Cinema welcomed multiple Academy Award-winning production designer Terrence Marsh, who collaborated with Lean on several films, including Lawrence of Arabia. The cinema's opening season program was introduced with several unique series, events, and visiting filmmakers, in addition to Marsh, including Stanley Nelson, Albert Maysles, Jill Godmilo, Kenneth Anger, and Paul Schrader. The night was the inaugural opportunity for IU Cinema to embrace its audience. From the podium, Jon Vickers addressed the sold-out crowd. Welcome to the Indiana University Cinema. It feels good to say those words. Before we begin, it's important to acknowledge the foresight and determination of the university's administration for making this project a reality. Not only President McRobbie for making the bold commitment in July of 2007 that film as an art form needed a home on this campus, but also Provost Hansen for providing her leadership and academic vision for the program, and all of the others involved in making it happen, from fundraising to project management. It was a masterful plan to turn the beautiful but unused University Theater into a new rehearsal, technical, performance, and classroom space for the Department of Theater and Drama and our state-of-the-art cinema. It would be reckless to try to list all of those responsible for the opening of Indiana University Cinema, as there surely would be somebody of significance left out. This opening is a culmination of many people's contributions of time, financial gifts, hard work, intellectual and creative thought, and volunteer hours. Everyone involved shared a common vision. I would, however, like to recognize a few of our major financial contributors, including Jane and Jay Jorgensen, who have funded the Jorgensen Guest Filmmaker Lecture Series and the Cinema's Lobby. We also have David R. Franklin, John and Amy Applegate, Steve and Alicia Trewick, Bruce and Robin Miller, and Wachovia Wells Fargo. We appreciate their leadership support. I would also like to thank IU Cinema staff members, Matthew Kirshner and Manny Knowles, who have worked tirelessly in getting ready for today, as well as one volunteer who devoted hundreds of hours of his time, Andy Hunsucker. In our strategies to become the top art house or cinematheque in the Midwest, we will be screening the best in new and classic international films, a very robust repertory program featuring new restorations, silent films with piano, organ, and orchestral accompaniment, documentary and experimental film, and even curated programs of service and educational films from IU's own vast collections. We will introduce new repeating series like Cine Kids, showcasing international films for children and families, Made in Indiana, featuring commercial and non-commercial films made here in the state, From the Archive series, pulling from IU's 70,000 items and their film holdings, and other unique and exciting series. We will also bring dozens of filmmakers to campus each year to introduce and speak about their work, as well as offer lectures and class visits. In addition to all of this is our academic programming. The cinema is dedicating up to 40% of its program to be curated in partnership with academic units across campus. You can see many examples of this programming in our spring lineup, which includes screenings of Metropolis with the Jacobs School of Music Orchestra, the Kenneth Anger Visit in partnership with the Kinsey Institute, and many others. Excuse me. The cinema boasts the best in 16mm and 35mm projection equipment, the Kineton FP38Es, with variable speed control and running reel-to-reel with changeover. This, along with our booth practices, gives us access to film prints from any archive in the world. This spring, you can see film prints from the Deutsche Film Institute, the British Film Institute, Library of Congress, UCLA, and others. Our Barco 2K projector and Sony 4K projector provide access to digital presentations of any format, including 3D. Because of these capabilities, we should have access to the best formats available for almost any film in circulation. Lastly, IU Cinema will not reach its goals if we're not clearly focused on the exhibition part of our mission. Meeting the highest standards of exhibition requires attention to the details. We want to change your movie-going expectations. We want you to expect nothing but the best from us. The best film prints, the best projection, the best service, and the best architectural setting. It is our commitment to get to know you as patrons and to make your experience personal. We plan to be part of creating your favorite movie-going experiences. Boy, and judging by the favorite moments, I think we have. Tonight's presentation of Lawrence of Arabia will include an overture and brief intermission, as was intended upon its release. We hope you enjoy your first IU Cinema experience. We thank you again for being with us. Now on to Aqaba. Now, I'm going to continue, sorry. This was the very first public event on January 13th. IU Cinema was formally dedicated on January 28th, 2011, during a robed ceremony with all of the pomp, circumstance, and weight these types of formal events carry. In addition to the reception and dinner, the significant difference between opening night was the presence of a short film titled Precious Images. The film title was not Lawrence of Arabia, but The Last Picture Show, and the conferring of an honorary degree, Doctorate of Humane Letters, for filmmaker Peter Bogdanovich. And so the chapter continues. This was a fun series of opening events, and I'm glad some of you in the audience were there, Bill. Opening a grand cinema requires a grand film, and that's why we chose Lawrence of Arabia. There's a moment in the film where T.E. Lawrence, of course, played by Peter O'Toole, crosses this impossible desert. And as he makes it across, it's a very epic moment in the film where he comes across as a speck in the sunset, but then he comes to the other characters. And he states that nothing is written. And for us opening on this night, nothing was written. Excuse me. Wow. Okay. Yeah, but anyway, thank you for, again, Brittany and team for letting me be part of this event. Now, if you want to continue celebrating IU Cinema's anniversary, Brittany's programmed a really great series of 10 significant films in IU Cinema's first decade. Sorry. And the first film, gosh, the first film to kick off the series is Taste of Cherry from Iranian director Abbas Kiarostami. And it's funny, when I introduced Kiarostami, I think I broke down on stage. But no, this is ridiculous, I'm sorry. So Abbas Kiarostami was a filmmaking hero of mine, a true artist, a photographer, a painter, as well as a master filmmaker. We had the good fortune of hosting him in 2014, 2 years before he passed, or about 2 years before he passed in 2016. And it was a great series of, I think we had 12 films total. We had a Jorgensen guest filmmaker lecture, which was led by the amazing Richard Pena, who was the former director of the New York Film Festival and the films at Lincoln Center, and other events. And it was really a great series of events, a highlight, another highlight of my time at IU Cinema. It was supported by the Jorgensen guest filmmaker series, as well as other lovers of international film, Jim and Roberta Sherman and Rita Grunwald. And just really powerful and impactful for IU Cinema and its audiences. Taste of Cherry was the first Kiarostami film that I'd ever seen. We played it for a week at the Vickers Theater when it opened in 1997. And it was a film unlike anything I'd seen. It's full of visual poetry, like many of his films. Also, so much simple beauty and a validation or subtle celebration of life, if you will. And it's just, it's, again, his work is unlike, I think, any other. It's born and based from neorealism, so there is a realism to it, but nothing is to chance in a Kiarostami film, even though they might look simple. They're so well planned and orchestrated. The film won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, and it really inspired me to seek out everything from the director. And I think his work is what really helped turn me into a cinephile. So I encourage you to watch it, and then I encourage you to watch the other 9 films that Brittany has programmed. So back to Brittany again, thank you and congratulations for everything you've accomplished.
Thank you, Jon. You keep saying everything we've accomplished, but you're a part of that we. You're the reason that we exist. So it's so great to have you join us tonight. And thank you for your extraordinary vision as our founding director. You have forever elevated and advanced the arts and humanities at Indiana University. And I am grateful for having been able to work alongside you, helping make your vision a reality. And thank you to our entire IU Cinema team for making tonight's event and all of our events world-class. It is an honor to be a part of this team. And before we sign off for the night, we promised you all at home some gifts. One of those gifts Jon has already mentioned, and I'll return to that in a minute. But first, our anniversary enamel pins, which I am modeling this evening, and which hopefully you've seen us promoting on social media in the days leading up to this event. We are thrilled. Sorry, Zoom, adjust my view whenever we share. We are thrilled to give away some of these gorgeous pins tonight, designed by our design and marketing manager, Kyle Calvert, to everyone who's joining us for tonight's celebration. You should be seeing a picture of them on your screen, and we'll be sharing a link in the chat with more info on how to secure yours. We'll be giving these away throughout our anniversary year, so be sure to tell any friends who couldn't make it for tonight's event to stay tuned. Finally, as Jon mentioned, we've curated a 10-film series looking back at key films and filmmakers from throughout our first decade. The series is called 10 Years, 10 Films, 10 Perspectives. Tonight, we kick off the first film, as Jon said, Abbas Kiarostami's Taste of Cherry. At the very end of this event, you will see information about how to watch the film. We are also including this information in the chat as well. Please note the film will not screen through this Zoom webinar screen. You will need to open a web browser to watch the film using the URL and passcode provided. You'll have 2 weeks to watch the movie. There is a limit of 100 views, so don't delay too long if you want to be sure to see this one. For the rest of the films in the series, you'll want to visit our website and be sure you're subscribed to our weekly email. You will only be able to watch the rest of the films in the series with info that we'll provide in those emails. We're also including a link to subscribe to our weekly email in the chat. We look forward to seeing you back here for additional events this semester and hopefully inside IU Cinema again as soon as it's safe for us to welcome you back. We miss you so much. Thank you again for helping create our place for film. Please take care of yourselves and be kind and generous to others. Have a very good night.